Good morning. Welcome to Exporting 101. I'm Karen Schma, Director of Diversity Business Investment and Entrepreneurship at the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, and I am delighted to serve as your moderator for today's program. The Fairfax County Economic Development Authority promotes Fairfax County as a business location, and we work with businesses of all kinds to help them start, grow, and relocate in Fairfax County. We are led by a board of county business leaders and funded by the Fairfax County government to promote the county as one of the world's best business locations and build the county's commercial tax base. The FCEDA is excited to host this webinar in partnership with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, the Export-Import Bank of the United States, and the U.S. Commercial Service. You will hear more about these three organizations shortly. Exporting can open the doors to a world of opportunity. Whether you're new to exporting or your company has been in business for years, exporting is one way that your company can expand their potential market, generate more revenue, and grow your business. We have a dynamic program planned for you today. The speakers will share valuable information on how they can assist you with building markets for your products and services around the globe. They will each provide individual presentations and then assemble to answer your questions. So please submit questions via the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel. With that said, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Pompeia Lambert is a senior trade specialist with the U.S. Commercial Service in Northern Virginia. She is primarily responsible for e-health and the information and communications technology sectors. In addition, Pompeia is the global cybersecurity lead for the Department of Commerce's trade promotion. She holds a master's degree in international management from the Thunderbird School of Global Management and is an expert when it comes to exporting. Pompeia, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that introduction, and of course for pulling us together on this very exciting presentation on Exporting 101. I will begin my presentation, good morning to everybody who's joined, by letting you know who we are, presenting the opportunity, then letting you know some of our programs and suggesting how you may want to engage with us. I've been working with U.S. companies from small to large enterprises for 25 years. It's hard to believe that it's gone by so quickly. And when I say small, it can be 3 to 5 employees. And when I say large, it can be the publicly traded companies like the IBMs of the world. And each US company represents their unique path in selling internationally. And so hopefully I will share these resources with you and let you know how you may be able to tap into these resources. Next slide. So we start with who we are. So we're part of the federal workforce. We're a cabinet level position, the U.S. Department of Commerce, which means that the secretary, the head of our department, changes with every administration, and they report directly to the White House. The Commerce Department itself is a large institution with almost about 40 to 45,000 employees, with 12 or so different bureaus, anything from the Weather Service to U.S. export controls, and we are part of the U.S. Commercial Service. We form a small part of the whole Department of Commerce, and in total, we are about 2,500 employees, and we're known as the U.S. Commercial Service. Next slide, please. So domestically, this is our footprint. We have 100 offices. I'm located in the Northern Virginia office, and we serve the U.S. companies that are located in Virginia as well as Washington, D.C. Overseas, next slide. We have a presence in 80 countries, which account for about 96% of the world export markets. Typically, we're co-located inside our US embassies and our US consulates. Depending on the amount of trade with the countries on the map, we may have the red balloons where it's a larger presence because trade is a higher priority or significance to the US exporting community. And then the purple dots are, of course, the smaller countries where our trade may be smaller. Thank you. Next slide. And now the opportunity. Pretty much a lot of the significant countries around the world have a similar cadre of servants, public servants, that are there to promote the selling internationally of their products and services because it means economic growth. Let's see how the United States, how we rank among some of our major competitors. In the United States, only 12% of our GDP is generated by exports. Whereas when we look at countries up north, just Canada is actually a lot more. And so are our other competitors around the world, like the UK and Germany. So we have a lot of work to do to increase our sales internationally. Next slide. And primarily we work with the small and medium-sized businesses around the United States because we know that's really where the growth and innovation lies. And we determined that actually less than 5% of the small and medium-sized companies sell internationally. And of those that do, only 58% sell to only one country. So we've taken a look over the years as to why is this so small. And there are several, of course, items to highlight, and I'll just mention some of them. Primarily, one of them is getting the working capital that they need to produce their products. So for example, a small business will get an order from a foreign country, and of course, they're not going to get paid until they ship. In the interim, they need to, buy raw materials, pay workers, and so forth to actually get that product shipped. And having no way to get that working capital is something that holds them back. Another very important point is, of course, how do they know that they're going to get paid in a timely manner when they're totally unfamiliar with that foreign customer in another country that they're not comfortable with, and so forth. So money is definitely, as in everything else, a key element of what the holdback may be. Another, of course, very important aspect is that the US companies, they will not be familiar what are the custom regulations of entering a foreign country, or even how to interact in a business setting with foreign buyers. Language barriers as well, of course, are an important consideration. And when I talk about regulations, we're talking about standards. As we know, outside of the United States, everybody, as an example, is pretty much on board with the metric systems, but we're not. So when selling internationally, that's one of the main, first steps too that you need to do is convert everything to the metric system so your buyer can understand what you're offering. Then in addition to the foreign customs and regulations, another setback is that US companies don't have the ability to connect with foreign buyers or potential agents that would be interested in representing their product line in foreign countries. Not to mention also, how do they say if a lot of our people here around the DMV, they sell to the federal government, but when they're sitting here, they're unsure on how do they, if they sell to the Transportation Administration here in the United States, how do they possibly do the same for a transportation department in one of the foreign countries. So that's another setback and challenge for the US companies. But at the end of the day, I think the one thing that we have noticed over the years is the lack of commitment from management, and that's from top management. So if your top management is not on board to make selling internationally a priority and develop a clear export strategy, that really hinders a small company from growing internationally. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now I've talked about the opportunity and the challenges that our small and medium-sized companies face. Now I'd like to address some of those challenges and point out how you may be able to work with a trade specialist like myself to hopefully help navigate some of these challenges. In this 360-degree service diagram, I like it because it kind of highlights all the key areas that a company faces when selling internationally. We typically start one-on-one with a US company and do what we call trade counseling, which is number 5 on the diagram. And basically, like I said, since we work with with a wide array of US companies, depending on where they are in their selling international process, it's a very individual relationship in terms of what is it that the US company needs, where are they at, and then try to connect them with the ecosystem partners that will be able to supply and provide guidance and solutions for what their immediate needs are to get them growing and selling overseas. So this first step is that one-on-one meeting where we sit down with the US company and we assess what it is that they would like to do and what is going on and how can we help them move forward. At the US Commercial Service, we do have industry expertise. As Karen highlighted, I work with e-health and IT in the area because if you're selling a software solution, it's very different from selling a lipstick, makeup, or tires. There's all these regulations and different channels, of course, sales channels to sell those different products overseas. And therefore, we try to, at the commercial service, have industry expertise so that we develop some of the nuances that are very specific to certain industries. Another important aspect of working with the US companies and getting them comfortable, like I said, the challenge is financing, getting the working capital, getting payment from unfamiliar foreign buyers. And this is some of the aspects that then we refer to partners like the Export-Import Bank, which I know is also going to present in this presentation. So Jonathan Brady will dive deep into that. Market research is also very important, just like it is in doing domestic sales. You need to know where are your customers, what are the countries that work best for your particular product or service. And this we really collaborate closely too with partners like the state of Virginia. And I know Ellen's also in this event, and we'll be sharing their resources at the state level from the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. So market research, again, is important, and we can help you with that in collaboration with our partners. Today's world, since we're so IT connected, website globalization is the best you can have in today's world to help your business along. Whether you have a Instacart type of website or if it's just an informational website, so that then people will read about your product or service and contact you for further information about it. The awareness of your website is very important, that it's friendly to the outside world. And we have an area within our U.S. Commercial Service, an e-commerce website that can help you along with how do you make your website user-friendly and welcoming to the foreign buyers. I will also lightly touch on the business matchmaking, and that's the challenge that we talked about, that sometimes the small and medium-sized companies, they don't know where to go to actually promote their companies and sit in front of potential foreign buyers and resellers and agents that will be interested in buying from them. We have individual services at the U.S. Commercial Service through a global network where we can help you and put you in front of the right folks for your product and service. The other aspect that I will talk about is how the federal government works on your behalf when you're looking to sell internationally, and this is strictly for procurement to foreign governments. So for example, if you have a procurement opportunity with the Ministry of Interior in a foreign country to build a bridge, and there is a foreign tender that's out, and you know that you have foreign competition, then you will be able to tap into us for support so that you can actually hopefully win that tender. Thank you. Next slide. So for the remainder of my slides, they'll be pretty quickly. I think that one slide is very key in explaining one-on-one how we work with you and how to approach the challenges you may have. But the bottom line is, one, do you have an exportable product or service? And we can help you figure that out and work with you. That's the question number one. Does somebody overseas want your product or service? That's point number one. And then you need to decide if you are export ready. What are those considerations? We have some outlines on our website where you can read through what the items are this is something that the company has to determine for themselves. And there are different considerations depending on whether you're new to export or you're increasing to another international market. Next slide. This year, we launched the Global Diversity Initiative. Our director for that initiative is Terry Batch, because just like we know that only 12% of our GDP comes from international sales, we also noticed that the underserved businesses are even lagging more behind from just a small and medium-sized company perspective on selling internationally. So we have launched this program to reach out and make sure that they're aware of our resources and we can help them sell internationally. Next slide. So that is the program where we want to also empower the diverse underserved community into selling international. Next. So this just shows how, according to the Census Bureau, only 22% of companies that are selling international identify themselves as minority. Next. And then we have the numbers also by demographic, and 20% of the 20% of the U.S. companies exporting identify as women-owned, and 6% as Hispanic, and another 6% by veteran status. Next. Sorry about that interruption. This is a listing of our services. Again, we do the trade counseling, we do market intelligence, we help you assess which markets have potential for you and who your foreign competitors are, and that we match you up with potential business partners, and we conduct commercial diplomacy where there may be obstacles to successfully entering international markets. And next slide, and I think with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I think next slide, I'm just going to mention a testimonial from one of our smoke businesses. It's Floral Genius here in Virginia that has successfully worked both with the state of Virginia and us. And in her own words, as she said, how we were a springboard to her business. And her business started because she got an inquiry from a foreign buyer, and she was unsure on how to move forward, and we helped her through the process. And just as at this point, because I am out of time, if I can ask you to go to the last slide, which has our contact information. This is our office, the U.S. Commercial Service here in Arlington, and we also have an office in Richmond. And I thank you very much for your time. Please contact us for further information. And now I turn it over to Karen.
Thank you so much for that information, Pompeia. You've got a lot of great information to share, and I look forward to hearing more about the resources available through U.S. Commercial Services during the Q&A. Thank you for that presentation. Our next speaker is Ellen Meinhardt, who is with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. Ellen serves as an international trade manager for the VEDP's Northern Virginia office, where her mission is to assist companies with increasing their sales revenue through exporting. Ellen began her early career in technical sales and marketing at IBM and NCR. She has a BS in marketing in French and an MBA in marketing and international business. Prior to joining VEDP, Ellen ran Starting Gate Global, an outsourced business development company where she executed market entry and growth strategies for international companies entering the U.S. Ellen, good morning, and thank you for being here.
Good morning, Karen. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Pompeia, so much for really setting me up with explaining the opportunities available in international trade and also the challenges. And for those Virginia companies, just know that the bottom line is our resources are here to make selling internationally easier for you. And my contact details are at the end. If you contact myself or Pompeia, we work closely together and we will make sure that you're leveraging all these the international business development resources available to you. And there are a lot. So my title is Senior International Trade Manager, and I work for the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and their International Trade Division. And what does that mean? Essentially, it means that my job is to help, primarily I work with small and medium-sized companies, help them pursue international markets, and ensure that they're leveraging all of Virginia's outsourced international business development resources. So if you're a Virginia company, there's somebody like me in every corner of Virginia, reach out to me and I'll make sure you're connected with the person who's there to help you pursue international markets. So before this presentation, I was thinking, so what are some of the characteristics that will alert you if your company should be thinking about selling internationally? And I would say, number one, if you've got a really innovative solution to a problem and you're really doing well in the United States, you should be thinking about international. If you have patents, you should be thinking about selling internationally. If you want to significantly grow your revenue, international is something you should be thinking about. There's other things, but in general, if you just want to start exploring international markets, we can help you do that. So please reach out. So the question I always get, and I want to just answer it right up front, is why does Virginia spend taxpayers' dollars to help companies sell internationally? And the reason is because statistically speaking, Companies that sell internationally have a 17% higher profit margin, and they pay their people 15% more than companies that only sell domestically. So that just means increased taxes here in Virginia. So next, please. So just quick, this is, you look at Virginia's, what we do in terms of exporting, 35 billion, half of which is products, half of which is services. Next. And this is just a snapshot from from last year in my division. We worked with about 300, I think it was 73 Virginia companies. 97% of them said that our resources were key to their international sales. And that they said that $813 million of sales they could attribute to our help, the VEDP International Trade's help, and that when they employed about 7,319 people whose jobs were there because of exporting. Next, please. So really quickly, I would like to just tell you our three main resources. There are outsourced international business development, customized international research, and then we've got grants. And for any other, if you have any challenges in terms of international business, just like Pompeia, we have all sorts of resources we can send you to know about international, your taxes and accounting and tax credits for selling internationally, or how you can think about foreign exchange, actually letting people buy in their own currency. So anything you need, we can be a great resource for that. So in terms of international research, our main goals with that is to help you determine where in the world you should be selling your product and service. And once we figure that out, basically then figure out what's the best way to enter that market so you can effectively sell there. And we do that through we have contractors in 120 countries. So I like to tell people, think about our contractors as your outsourced business development team in 120 countries. They can help with the research to understand their markets and be smart about entering them. And then they also have another hat. They are also can act as your business development resources in those companies and reach out to partners, end users with your value proposition and confirm meetings with you there as well. Next, please. So we do this idea of outsourced international business development in three main ways. And then we go on trade missions. And essentially what that is a week's worth of customized meetings for your company. I'm leading a trade mission to South Africa in November, and the companies all will have their own individualized meetings for that week. Trade shows. This year we have a booth at several defense trade shows, a medical trade show, a cyber trade show, a maritime trade show, as well as an advanced manufacturing trade show. And I will show you where we're going. But that is just a great way, if you're in any of those industries, to come out and check out the show. It only costs $2,500 to exhibit with us. So it's a very little spend as opposed to exhibiting there yourself. So you can check it out and see if you want to have a booth there in the future. And then the third is just, we call them independent market visits, but all that means is that wherever we have contractors around the world, you can go to their country and have customized meetings when it's right for your schedule. So for example, if you were going to a conference in Colombia and you gave me 6 to 8 weeks lead time, our Colombian contractors could set up meetings with potential partners and end users in Colombia. So next. So this is our trade mission and trade show for our fiscal year, which starts in July and ends in June. And you'll see we're going all over the place. And everything's filled through Colombia. But let me just quickly, if you're interested in any of these countries, so you know what's available. Our trade mission to Saudi and UAE, we still have 2 spots there. IDEX, that's a defense trade show, that's sold out. Winter Germany, we have spots there. That is we go to 5 different US bases in Germany, and there's a technology trade fair at each one of them. And the reason it's an international as well. We have a lot of allies on those bases that also show up at that fair. So if you're interested, if you know of organizations on any of those bases or our key allies, that could be interesting to you, please let me know. India, we've got 1 spot in our India trade mission, 2 spots in our Mexico trade mission, plenty of room in our Hanover Messe. That is for, again, advanced manufacturing. If you have anything to do with advanced manufacturing, would love to talk to you about Hanover Messe, biggest show in the world, very expensive. So come and check it out with us. Southeast Asia has room, Brazil has room, Australia and New Zealand are sold out, Paris Air Show is sold out, and Info Security is sold out. So just a quick tip, if any of these interest you in the future, when our new program, or so our new activities will come out sort of in the beginning of January, and they'll go live for registration in April. If you want to exhibit with us at any trade show, or if you know for sure you want to go on a trade mission, register immediately. Especially for our trade shows, they will sell out very quickly. I know that Paris Air Show sold out in 10 minutes. But let me give you a quick example of how one of my clients used our resources. So you get an understanding of maybe how you could take advantage of them too. So I have a client, and they have a software as a service for decentralized or hybrid clinical trials. And so why that's important is that when pharmaceutical companies or anybody doing human trials, in the past, what had happened is all these people who were sick had to come to labs for every stage of these human trials. So it was very hard to recruit people. Oftentimes people then dropped out because they had to travel a lot of distances. But in 2020, the FDA said that human trials, part of them can be decentralized or hybrid. So they can be done over a video screen, just like we're doing now. So that allowed for a lot of opportunity, and my client has developed this software now that these trials can be hybrid. So he wanted to find out if any other countries were doing this as well. And I knew that Australia is really trying to attract more clinical trials to their country. So I thought, why don't we try them? Why don't we do some research to see what they're doing in these hybrid or decentralized trials? So we started out with research, and we had our Australian contractors. My client had a couple of questions. Are decentralized or hybrid trials allowed in Australia? What are the regulations and protocols in place for those decentralized trials? Who are the key competitors and players offering clinical trials? And what is the size of the market? Our contractors in Australia did that research, and it turns out that Australia looked like a great market for them. In 2018, they actually allowed decentralized trials, and so they're just sort of getting started there as well. So because the market looked good, then my client pivoted and used our Australia business development contractors to reach out to their target audience, which are clinical research organizations. And so they did, and 25% of those, they're called CROs, clinical research organizations, responded and wanted to have meetings with my client, which further just confirmed that Australia was a good market for them. So hopefully that's a good example, and you can sort of understand how you can be taking advantage of our resources. So next. So our last big resources are grants. And we have grants to really just encourage small and medium-sized businesses to try out international markets. Like, oh, you've always been wanting to go to this international trade show in Germany. There's a grant to help you, a $10,000 grant that can defer some of those costs and really help with your return on investment. We also have our sort of signature grant is something called the Virginia Leaders in Export Trade. This is for companies that have really said international business is a strategic part of our business, and they can apply to this program. There's a $30,000 grant attached to it. They have to write it. We help them write a 2-year sort of export plan, and there's a lot of resources that really help these companies focus on international business for those 2 years. It's been very successful. We're actually celebrating its 20th year, and on average, companies increase their international sales by about 43%. For those that may not just want to dip their toes more into international business, we have something called the Regional Export Program. I call that our 1-year mini export accelerator program. And there's a $10,000 grant with that can help you reimburse a myriad of international business expenses. Next, we've got a grant to help defense companies pursue ministries of defense around the world. If you're an e-commerce company, either B2C or B2B, we've got a $10,000 grant to help you go after international clients. And if you just want to optimize your supply chain, talk to me. We've got a new program. Our inaugural program was last year went very well, but we've got a new supply chain optimization program that you may be interested in. Next. And lastly, this actually data needs to be updated because we just got approved. We've got monies from the Small Business Administration, and it's going to be a $6,000 grant to help reimburse flights at 75% of flights and hotels, as well as international PR and marketing expenses. So next. So here's just some Virginia companies that have taken advantage of our international business development resources here in Fairfax County. K-12, that is an online education company. They went with me to India right before the pandemic started in February of 2020. By January of 2021, they had trials in 23 private schools based on meetings that they had during that trade mission. ENSCO is a company that has a technology that can detect if people are being smuggled or human trafficked in trucks or trucks or trains or anything. So to find out that may be happening, and we've helped them really open up Central and South America. Next. And then MAG Aerospace is the company that's taken advantage of a lot of our resources, and I'll just give you a second to let you read about what they've said about our resources. And then next. And here's my contact information. Again, if you're a company in Virginia, you want to explore, or you're currently doing business internationally, you haven't taken advantage of our resources, please reach out to me, and I'll make sure myself or whoever's responsible for you ensures that you are leveraging all of our outsourced international business development resources. Thank you.
Ellen, thank you so much for that fabulous presentation. A lot of great resources for which our attendees can take advantage. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jonathan Brady. Jonathan is a business development specialist with the Minority Women-Owned Business Outreach Group at the Export-Import Bank of the United States. He's based in Washington, D.C., and his business development role with the Minority Women-Owned Business Group is to serve as the primary liaison for Hispanic business organizations and veteran business organizations at the national, state, and federal local levels. Jonathan, good morning, and thank you for being here.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Karen. It's great to be on today's platform with you and your team, and I appreciate your hosting today's program. And also shout out to my international trade colleagues at the Commercial Service and VEDP. Once again, my name is Jonathan Brady. I'm a business development specialist in the Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach Group, MWOB team, at the Export-Import Bank of the United States, also known as EXIM for short. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of the EXIM Bank and what we do, and describe to you how they assist our programs, how they assist U.S. exporters. Next slide, please. By way of introduction, EXIM is a federal government agency and serves as the export credit agency of the United States. We were established more than 80 years ago in the 1930s, and Washington, D.C. is the location of our headquarters, supported by 12 regional offices. And our mission, simply put, is to create and sustain jobs by increasing U.S. export sales. Now, what I'd like to do is highlight the statistic. Before we move on, highlight the statistic in the circle, 86.9%. In FY 2021, small business transactions made up nearly 87% of the bank's portfolio. And I know that may be difficult to believe because you typically hear about the large dollar transactions or support given to large corporations such as the Fortune 500 members. But actually, it's the small businesses that benefit the most from EXIM Bank support. Next slide, please. So the MWOB team, we are a dedicated team of specialists, trade finance specialists, and export counselors who seek to expand inclusiveness through, I'm going to highlight a few, ensuring an equitable distribution of services across the United States and to various groups, increasing awareness of other international trade resources and resource providers, such as my colleagues you've heard from today, earlier today, and nurturing clients to develop a roadmap based upon their level of export readiness or export experience, helping them develop a roadmap and learn about those resources that are out there. Next slide. So target audiences served. The MWOB team, of which I'm a member, works with minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, and business owners with disabilities to help them gain access to XM financing. Essentially, we're devoted to the target audiences listed here, various groups belonging to what we call the underserved business community, as seen here in the middle column. Next, please. Why should you export? It's safe to say exporting can be one of the best ways of expanding your business. Let me highlight three principal reasons. Number one, wider access to more consumers and businesses. Number two, diversifying market opportunities and your business portfolio. And number three, in some cases, minority-owned businesses are uniquely qualified to connect with export markets. So if you are doing well domestically, just imagine how well you could be doing if you're exporting. And by not exporting, you may be hindering or limiting your potential business growth. Next, please. So let's talk about financing. Because we are the export credit agency of the United States, our financing makes the difference between winning or losing a sale or a contract. You should know that our products minimize risk for the exporter as well as the importer or foreign buyer. XM financing levels the playing field for U.S. companies competing for global sales, and it fills gaps or supplements private sector lending and private sector insurance offerings. Next, please. So we're going to talk about two products going forward. One is pre-export, that is what you see on the slide, working capital loan guarantee, and then we'll move to a post-export example known as export credit insurance. First of all, our working capital loan guarantees provide the funds you need to fulfill orders, and the loan proceeds can be used to purchase the finished product that you may be exporting, raw materials, overhead, additional labor as needed, and any legitimate costs associated with the export transaction. XM, here's how it works. XM provides a 90% loan backing guarantee to lenders for export-related loans, which makes lenders more willing and more comfortable to finance the export transactions. The loans are either transaction specific or can be, in some cases, the revolving line of credit. The term is generally 1 year and it can extend up to 2 or even 3 years. There's no minimum or maximum amount for the working capital loan guarantee program. Let's go to the next slide. Now I'm going to shift to the post-export finance solution known as export credit insurance. Let's turn our attention to our flagship product. This is what we're most known for at the Export Credit Agency of the United States. Basically, we're going to go through these benefits. Basically, the export credit insurance removes the risk associated with exporting. It protects you if your customer doesn't pay because of two kinds of risks. One is commercial risk, or the other is political and economic. Political risk. Let me give you a few examples. It might refer to a condition in which your buyer loses his or her import license, commits fraud, and on the political side, political risk, civil unrest, or an outbreak of war in your target market, your destination country. These are just a few of the examples of situations in which you're covered should they occur. The policy is also a bargaining or sales tool because you can offer credit in the form of open account terms to your buyers. This benefits you as well as your buyer because you're not requiring cash or payment in advance. In these circumstances, your customer may increase their order with you because you're not expecting payment for 30, 60, or 90 days, whatever terms you agree to. And finally, the policy is also a financing tool or financing aid because the insured foreign receivables may be added to your borrowing base, providing you with access to financing. Think of it this way: XM's insurance enhances the quality of your balance sheet. Your foreign receivables become insured, allowing your company to borrow against those receivables, giving you access to financing. So those are the three basic benefits. Let's move to the next slide. And I'll take you through a representative case. You're probably going to experience something similar to this if you decide to apply for export credit insurance and get approved. A transaction utilizing this insurance is outlined here. Let's start with step on the left-hand side, steps 1, 2, and 3. You've identified your customer, the farm buyer, and you apply for export credit insurance. When approved, you offer credit terms and your farm buyer agrees to those terms. So moving forward to step 4 and 5, 6, the product is shipped. The shipment gets reported by you or an insurance broker, and the premiums paid at that time. And that's what's so great about this insurance product. You pay the premiums only when you ship the product, not monthly as most insurance policies require. Next slide, please. Yes, here at XM, we support a variety of industries from manufacturing to power generation to renewable energy and agribusiness. And I want to stop momentarily and talk about services while we're here, focus on services. XM Bank provides support to a wide range of services, everything from, let me give you some examples, IT consulting to the so-called A sector, which is architecture, construction, and engineering expertise, for example. Also medical professionals or healthcare services, and another one that I see quite often in the DC metro region is education and training. So you could have an expertise based on a career in federal or state government and decide to launch your own business and export a service based on your career 15, 20, 25 years in a particular field. Highly exportable. So if you are a business and you provide a service and don't have an actual product that you're exporting, don't dismiss receiving support from XM Bank. Next slide. Now let's talk about some tools for exporters. You can find this on our website. It's known as the Country Limitation Schedule. We are open for cover, that is providing support in more than 180 countries. However, I do like to advise audience members and clients to view this country limitation schedule when they start exporting or exploring additional markets to see whether we're open for cover, that is providing coverage in your market of interest, the target country, and for how long, and whether it's a public sector or private sector transaction. So you can sort alphabetically, identify the country of interest, and then see very quickly whether we're providing support for short-term, medium-term, long-term transactions, and then the type of recipient. Is it public sector, the sovereign, for example, or a government agency, or is it private sector, B2B or B2C, as the case may be. Next slide, please. Our previous speakers talked about this topic. It's important to consider export readiness. The key question is, are you ready to export? In other words, do you have a product or service with a specialty, something unique or a niche that will draw customers to your business? What's your competitive advantage? Which countries should you select for exporting? How do you narrow down to a few export markets? Maybe you should consider partnering or teaming with another US-based business until you are ready. The MWOV division, where I work, along with the colleagues, my international trade colleagues, earlier today, you heard from them. We are available to help you with these and other export readiness topics, including, as you can see here, counseling, export counseling. Definitely tap into those resources available, identifying buyers for your products or services, and finally, access the cash flow to support your budget for international business expansion, access to financing. Next slide, please. So let me talk about a few additional resources. Because XM Bank's a relatively small agency, we rely on the resources I'm about to share with you to help us raise awareness about XM and exporting and finance, trade finance solutions. So first of all, we have our network of insurance brokers, as you can see at the top. Our brokers are paid for by XM, and they are of little or no cost to you, the exporter. And at XM, we strongly encourage you to use an insurance broker. A broker can assist you in the application process, maintenance of the policy, filing claims if the need arises, and all at little or no cost to you, as I mentioned. And a list of brokers registered with XM can be found on our website under the insurance broker locator. Next, we have our regional export promotion program. Some of you may be familiar with this, known as REP for short. Our REP members, these are organizations at the state and local levels that assist XM in raising awareness about our trade finance solutions. The rep members also play a vital role in international business planning, export counseling, educational programming, and getting businesses export ready. Definitely seek out a rep organization. They are located all over the United States, including Virginia, and listed on our website under the rep locator. You can search by state and locate the one that's closest to you. Next slide, please. So how to stay connected with us, you can see here different social media channels. I do want to mention the XM blog, grow.xm.gov, because you can tap into wonderful range of resources here and get articles submitted by our subject matter experts at XM, and they go beyond just trade finance. So it's a great way to follow cutting edge topics in international trade and drill down on trade finance solutions. So take a look at grow.xm.gov when you have a chance. Next slide, please. And my contact information, feel free to reach out and schedule a consultation with me or one of my colleagues. Take a look at the MWOB website page, and you can schedule a consultation at grow.xm.gov. So I look forward to assisting you, and thanks again for having me on today's program.
Thank you, Jonathan, for all of that great information. I'd now like to invite Pompeia and Ellen to turn on their cameras and their microphones, and we will transition to the Q&A. All right, let's see. We've got a lot of questions being asked, and I'll start with Jonathan. This one looks like it's for you.
Okay.
Does XM provide support for service providers seeking export financing solutions?
Yes, good question. I do want to emphasize that we do provide support for a variety of industries, and service providers are certainly eligible. The United States economy typically generates a trade surplus in services, so we're considered a leader in many professions, highly exportable, and the simple answer is yes, we do provide support to service providers.
Thank you for
Karen, can I ask him a question though that came up in my head?
Sure.
Because Jonathan, I understand service providers, but what about cyber companies, software as a service company, those type of companies? Can XM help them as well? I just wasn't clear about that.
Yes, case by case, it depends on who is the recipient of the services. So we'd have to understand the business model, who's the foreign buyer. There are restrictions in some cases in the defense industry. We do have military restrictions. So we would just have to clarify what is the business model, who's the foreign buyer, who's going to be the ultimate beneficiary of the technology, and what implications are there for the U.S. national security interests. So that's just.
What about a pure, like, let's say Salesforce? What would that be? If Salesforce wanted to get a loan, would they be able to get a loan? I mean, from you or a working capital?
Yes. If
Okay.
they're selling to, again, the country limitation schedule is step one. Are we open for cover in that destination country or target market? And then drill down on the notes section. If our audience members are going to the country limitation schedule, take a closer look at the notes, because there may be further requirements. So we just want to clarify, what is the destination country? Are there further requirements or restrictions for that country? And who is the recipient of or beneficiary of that technology? But in most cases, if it's going to the private sector and doesn't have it doesn't have a negative impact on national security interests in the United States, then it's most likely yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank
Sorry,
you so
Karen.
much, Jonathan. So this next question is for everyone. Any recommendations or advice for a startup who is just getting started in the exporting game? I'd like to hear from each of you. Pompeia, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, the first question is define startup, right? Because we have a
Exactly.
wide, I mean,
Right.
Define startup. I mean, at
But
what stage are you?
just in general, somebody that's just starting a business or has been around, let's just say for a couple of years,
Okay.
and now they're looking to pivot, looking to expand their business.
Okay. Yeah. So again, everybody has a platform now, and you are, visual to the world. And in terms of first step is, sit down with us and let's take a look, see if anybody is, what's your target? There are some industries that are really hungry for innovative startup technologies. I know, for example, recently the aerospace industry is really looking at ramping up their input from startups. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, but there's definitely work to, because when the startups start looking at this from the beginning of their growth, it'll help them get into the international markets faster once they're ready to take that plunge.
Ellen, do you want to take a stab at it?
Sure. I have to say I work with a lot of companies just because I work with tech companies, and it's a lot cheaper with tech companies to go international versus a company that has to ship and all that sort of thing. So again, like Pompeia, I would want to talk with this company, but I mean, I've worked with a lot of startups, and it also helps if they've gotten some seed money or some venture capital or angel money, to help them with the costs of going after foreign markets as well.
All right, thanks. And Jonathan, what about you?
Yes, I think it is a challenging period. The first year of the entrepreneurial startup is in year 1 or year 2 and is still generating, growing its revenues. We do look for an operating history of 2 to 3 years, typically at XM for the export credit insurance or the working capital loan guarantee program, both of which I talked about briefly. And that's because it takes time to develop the track record for credit worthiness, and also to have a set of financial statements and tax returns. So 1 year would be tight. We'd be willing to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but typically the operating history is 2 to 3 years as a minimum at XM.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another question. My company provides fractional CMO and marketing services for B2B software and tech companies. In the last 18 months, I've worked with companies from the UK, France, Israel, UAE, Nigeria, and China. These were opportunistic deals. What should I do to plan and implement a more systemic international export program for 2023?
I mean, I'll take that. Congratulations. That is awesome. I mean, you must obviously doing something that people care about internationally. And I think it's just like making a domestic, you have to make a domestic plan, a business plan. You can do that the same thing internationally. And I would say if you're getting a sense of countries where you're getting a lot of opportunity, that's always a great place to start. So maybe as proactively figure out which country has been most interested in what you do. And then, we could help you with additional research in terms of potentially finding a partner in that country that can help you, sell this, and perhaps also finding, helping you get a partner that can find you chief marketing officers in that country, which would also would help you grow your business. But I think the first step would be sort of identifying 1 or 2 countries where you want to target. And then if you're a Virginia company, we're glad to sort of help you figure out sort of additional information on how to move forward. Should you be selling directly? Should you be selling through a partner, etc.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for that, Ellen. I need an international banker. Can you recommend any?
Yes, but Jonathan, do you want to go since you're more of a banking entity?
Yes, for working capital loan guarantees, we do have something. I didn't get time to go into depth during my presentation, but we work with a network of banks called delegated authority lenders for the working capital loan guarantee programs. Essentially, it's a network of about 51 banks nationwide, all sizes. They have expertise in administering working capital loan guarantees for their clients who have export transactions. There is a lender locator listed on our XM website, and you can search alphabetically by the name of the lender or financial institution. So if you're interested in working capital, that's a good starting point. And we do have this network of about 50 banks known as DA or delegated authority lenders.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Here's another question. How will I know if my product will be successful in another country? Pompeia?
Sure. So, I mean, that's a tough one, right? I mean, first of all, one of the guidelines we do is ask you, have you had inquiries from overseas? Do you do trade shows? Do you network? And, one of the things, if the company is nearby a metropolis where their foreigners come visit, foreign buyers and so forth, that's always, go to a local event where we have that kind of outside visitors in the same event, and you can do that kind of networking, and you can definitely work, I'm sure, even with the Fairfax EDA. I know you are also very active with international visitors, and Alan and ourselves. So that's one, what I would say, quote unquote, easy lift or easier. And then the next step, so for us, we have the presence in 80 countries, and we can always have an informal, just introductory call with our boots on the ground in that country, and just have an initial inquiry as to if this is something that they think may be of interest in those countries.
All right, sounds good. Yes, Ellen. Do you
Well,
want to weigh
I
in?
just want to say for Virginia companies, we do this a lot. We call it the top 10 markets research, and to really help narrow down the world for people. For example, I had a client that has a traffic calming software. And so we looked, one at some of the data points to try to figure out where in the world they should sell was looking at countries with huge amounts of traffic accidents around the world. And a lot of those are in what we call mega cities like Sao Paulo or something like that. And then we had a variety of data, and then we sort of narrowed that down a little bit more to look at what countries were actually spending money to help them prevent these traffic accidents as well. So that helped us narrow it down more. There's tremendous amounts of data, and I have got a whole team in Richmond that all they do is helps companies figure out, answer questions about this sort of thing. So we've got a lot of great resources to help companies figure out where in the world they should be selling.
Okay, and then this next question is for you as well, Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a fee to take advantage of VEDP services?
That's a great question. I'm glad I should have made that clear. So all of our resources, some of them are free, but the majority of them are highly subsidized. So just in general, $250 for research. So we're obviously paying our contractors a lot more than that. So a company would pay $250 for research, or a multiple thereof, depending on how big the project was. And then customized meetings is usually a $2,500 fee, depending wherever you're going around the world. And then to exhibit with us at trade shows, $2,500. But again, this is being significantly subsidized by the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Okay, and I'll ask the same of you, Pompeia, and you as well, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all charge for your services?
Yes, so it is a fee-based service. We're mandated by Congress to collect partial fee recoveries. So for example, one of the items when we trying to determine if there is a interest for your product in that country is a service that we call the initial market check. And that is for a small company, the fee for that is $350. And also for like what we call the business matchmaking, where we can actually put you in touch of potential business partners and buyers for a small company, that fee is $950. Obviously, when we don't think we're not in the business of flying. We're not in the travel business, I should say. So unless we know that we can deliver the type of meetings that you're interested in a given country, we will not move forward with a Gold Key service. So this is something that we do across the board. because as you can also see from our resources, we are limited in terms of the numbers of staff per office. And therefore, we have to show results that whatever assistance we actually gave the US companies, it did result in a signed contract or sales. And that's how we get judged on our performance.
Okay, and then Jonathan, what about XM Bank?
Yes, sure. For the products I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there are some fees involved with the export credit insurance. They vary according to the type of policy.
Right.
And typically, as a percentage of invoice value, you'll see fees equaling approximately 1 to 2% of the amount reported in the invoice. But there can be some fluctuation based on the individual product. We do have an export credit insurance product known as Express, in which the underwriting team at XM Bank provides an additional service to determine the credit worthiness of the foreign buyer. So that fee is slightly higher. It builds in that service, and it's slightly higher, but well worthwhile if you're new to exporting and new to the export credit insurance industry. So that's where there might be some variation with the insurance products. And then yes, for the working capital loan guarantee program, just to clarify with the audience members, we are not a lender for short-term transactions. We provide loan backing guarantees. So there will be a process of getting approved for the loan with the exporter's individual bank, and that bank's going to charge interest rates based on their own lending program, and that varies from one institution to the next, one lender to the next.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So that concludes the Q&A. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. For those individuals on the call that have asked questions or put their questions in the Q&A and we were not able to get to them, we will follow up with you directly via email. I would like to thank our speakers today, Pompeia Lambert of the U.S. Commercial Service, Ellen Meinhardt, Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and Jonathan Brady, XM Bank of the United States.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today and for providing such valuable information on how to enter and conduct business globally. Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you.
We appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Karen.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
To our webinar attendees, thank you for joining us today. It is our hope that you found the webinar informative and that you will be encouraged from what you heard today to begin exporting. Remember, there are federal and state resources to assist you. Again, thank you to our speakers and to all of our attendees. For more information about the work of the FCEDA, visit our website at fairfaxcountyeda.org. On behalf of FCEDA President and CEO Victor Hoskins and all of my FCEDA colleagues, we thank you. Have a great day.